Welcome to Megaphone, everyone. Today we are talking about inventory. And for many of you, you may not have thought about your podcast having inventory. Usually we think about stores and businesses having inventory. Well, I want you to start thinking about your podcast as a business, and therefore your podcast has inventory. What kind of inventory do you have? You have the ability with Megaphone to run dynamic ads at certain points in your show, and people will pay you for that. Okay, that's your inventory. And this tab on Megaphone is going to show you what inventory is available, what inventory has been sold. So let's take a look at this. When you first log into Megaphone, you'll be on the dashboard. Go over to this tab on the side that says inventory and click on it, and this is what you're going to see. It tells us right here, you're not going to see much until you select a podcast. So we go over here. You may have one podcast that's in your Megaphone account, so just select that one podcast. In this case, I'm going to show you the inventory for one of my shows called Twin Talks. So I select Twin Talks, and this at a glance is all of my inventory. The goal is to not see as much green as you're seeing here, because if you're seeing green, that means your inventory is available and you haven't sold it. But let's take a look at this chart here, if you will, and break things down so you know exactly what you're looking at. In the far left, we have dates. And these represent the episodes that I have planned throughout the rest of the year. And I encourage you guys to plan for at least a year out for your show. Does that mean you have to know all your topics and you have to have your guests? No, that would be way overwhelming. But think about the longevity of your podcast, and especially if you're going after advertisers, in year-long increments, because advertisers plan way far in advance. So I have all of my episodes laid out through the end of 2020. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. And if you've already watched the video on podcasts, on this section up here, podcasts, and how you create draft episodes, you're one step ahead of everybody else, because that's the first step in getting to this point where you can see your inventory. So here are the episodes, and it breaks it up according to month, so you can see really clearly what month we're in. And I can tell by looking at this that I have one pre-roll spot selected. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 mid-roll spots, and I have one post-roll spot that technically could be available for advertisers. Having said that, I don't recommend that you run campaigns as pre-rolls and post-rolls. I have put an ad marker in all of my shows for pre-rolls and post-rolls, but I don't use it for campaigns. I use it for promos. And the inventory tab here is going to show you any place where you have said an ad could run in upcoming shows. So even though I use pre-rolls and post-rolls for promos, it's still going to show up here. Even if I had a promo scheduled in these spots, it's not going to show up on the inventory page. Only campaigns show up on the inventory page. Now, if you are part of the program where we sell ads for you, you always have the ability to sell your own ads as well and incorporate the advertisers into your show and schedule your own campaigns. That you are more than welcome to do that, as long as you are doing it and you're not hiring a third-party company to do it. And then in addition, we can sell ads for you. You will see through here if we have advertisers booked for you and when those spots are booked. So you will see your own campaigns and you will see what we have scheduled for you. In the campaigns video, I told you you're not going to see the actual campaigns we have set up, and that's true. But on the inventory page, it will show up if these spots are unavailable because we've already booked those for you. And that's really important because you have to know what your availability is. So when an advertiser calls you and says, "Hey, Sunny, I really want to be on your show. Do you have any availability in April?" I can look at my schedule and say, well, I do have one advertiser that's booked on most of my shows in April, but I've got 3 other mid-roll spots that are available. So right now I could take on up to 3 additional advertisers in April. And that's what the inventory tab is all about. And you can tell up here at a glance, you can see that there's 100% availability for pre-roll as well as post-roll, because again, I don't schedule campaigns as pre-rolls or post-rolls, but there is 85.98% availability for my mid-roll slots. And then over here, you can tell my total availability, if you were to average these together, is 90.65% still available. So your next question may be, I've come to this page and I don't see anything, and I click on my podcast and it's still not showing me anything. You are not going to see anything in inventory unless you have scheduled draft episodes for your podcast in the podcast section, because it can't show you anything if you haven't told it what you're planning to release in the future. That's why if you guys watch the video, the podcast video that we did, I said, make sure you do draft episodes. In fact, we're going to go back there and show you the process of doing that. So now we're in podcasts. We're going to go into another podcast of mine. And over here, you'll see 2 options, episodes and drafts. I want you to click on drafts. And you can see that I have a bunch of draft episodes scheduled all the way through the end of the year. And I do recommend that you try to plan that far out. I know it seems like a long ways, but these advertisers, they need way advance notice of what you're working on and what's available. So plan out for a year in advance. I haven't gone in and done anything with this, so I'll show you. I click on one of these. This is the default for what Megaphone puts. I haven't put anything in this. The only thing that I have told it is that I am going to release an episode on April 2nd, 2020, and I've also told it what ad spots are available in those episodes. Let me show you how I did that. So again, I'm on the draft page. I go over here to plan inventory, and then it's going to ask me, the top part is the date of release. The bottom part are how many pre-rolls, mid-rolls, and post-rolls you are going to have in that episode. Now, for dynamic ads, it's very important that you stay consistent with the amount of ad spots available in your episode. So if you have determined that 1 pre-roll, 1 post-roll, and 2 mid-rolls are good for your show, then that's what you need to stick with. If you decide to change it in the future, you're going to have to go back and change all of your episodes, because it's going to be really hard metrics-wise to tell advertisers how many downloads to expect. And it just kind of becomes a big mess. We've tried it in the past. It doesn't work. So please make sure whatever you choose, you keep doing. Let's say that this podcast airs or new episodes are released on Tuesdays. So I'm going to go into Tuesday. And I'm just going to keep, this is a weekly show, right? So I'm just going to keep adding all the way through. Keep going, keep going. It's basically going to create draft episodes for all of this. All I'm doing is going through and clicking the dates. So what I would do is go through the entire year, a year out, and then the bottom part's important too. You're going to tell it how many pre-rolls, how many mid-rolls, and how many post-rolls. Usually I just do 1 pre-roll and 1 post-roll. The mid-roll is the question that you're going to have to figure out. The average amount of advertisements that most podcast audiences are okay with, it's based on the length of your show. So the formula we've come up with is 1 ad per 15 minutes of content. So if you have a 30-minute podcast, in theory, you could have 2 mid-roll spots. So let's say that's the case here. So we're going to have 2 mid-roll spots for all of these episodes that I've highlighted. All you have to do is click Create Episodes, and it's going to show up. Now, I'm not going to do that because it would really mess up my planning here. So I'm actually going to go and exit out of that. But that is literally how I created all of these draft episodes. And you can see there's consistency. In my shows, I always have 1 pre-roll, 4 mid-rolls, 1 post-roll. And because I did this, now when I go to inventory, and this was for newbies that we looked at, look, it's all there. All my episodes are there because I saved them as drafts. Okay, guys, that is the inventory button on Megaphone. I highly encourage you to use this. Really think about your show and the inventory and make it a goal of being able to fill at least 10%, 20%, 50% of your shows. You'll get better and better at this, and you'll have more money, and that's always a good thing, right? All right, thanks, guys. Ask if you have any questions.